for Ask the Experts with Collaborative Solutions. We're here today to talk about best practices for year-end payroll. So today I'm going to introduce our participants, tell you a little bit about Collaborative Solutions, and then we'll get right into talking about common practices for year-end payroll. At the end of the session, you will have an opportunity as participants to ask some questions, so feel free to drop those into the chat as you go along. As those questions occur to you, we'll be monitoring those, and then we will open it up for Q&A at the end of the session. So to start a little bit about Collaborative, my name is Mary Ellen Kennemer. I'm in the strategy practice with Collaborative. I've been here about 8 years. Collaborative is one of the longest tenured Workday partners. We are a full service finance, HR, and student cloud transformation consultancy. Well, we've recently joined the Cognizant family of companies. We actually have been in the Workday ecosystem really from the very beginning and have now serviced more than 800 Workday customers. We keep a 98% customer satisfaction rating, so we're very proud of that. And we're also very proud of the great place to work that we have developed, the strong culture we have internally. You can see that we've won a number of awards through the years, including some just here in the last year that we're very proud of. And so with that said, let's get straight into introducing some of our experts that are here today. We're going to be talking about common practices for year-end payroll. And joining us today are Peggy Geisinger and Tammy Strom. I'm going to let each of them introduce themselves very briefly. Peggy, tell the folks a little bit about yourself.
Hi, yes, I'm Peggy Geisinger, and I reside in Arizona outside of Phoenix in a little town called Gilbert. It's not so little anymore, it keeps growing, but I have been with Collaborative. It'll be 2 years this month, so I'm very excited. Very happy and very proud to say I work for Collaborative, a Cognizant company now as well, watching the growth. And I have been in payroll for probably more years than I want to admit because that might give my age away. But I have been in the Workday ecosystem for 5 years. So I am very happy and learning all the time. Workday continues to grow, which forces me to grow and always chasing the cheese or the mouse with the cheese. So learning and growing. And that would be about me.
Great. Thank you, Peggy. Tammy, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Tammy. I'm located in Tampa, Florida. I'm with Collaborative's Organizational Change and Training Practice. I've been with Collaborative for almost 2 years now and have over 8 years of experience in change management.
Great. Thank you, Tammy. So we've gone ahead and we've collected some of the questions that we know that our customers ask us about common practices with year-end payroll. And today we're going to be talking about just some general considerations for year-end payroll, common issues that come up, a dashboard functionality in Workday that's very useful, some recommendations Collaborative has, and then some tips and tricks that we know that would be great to share with you. So Peggy, let me start with you. Under the heading of what's it all about, can you tell us how the year-end payroll activities fit into the regular day-to-day process of our customers?
Well, that's a great question. As we often ask and have been asked by other companies, maintaining year-end activities is always a challenge. You kind of forget about them until it is the quarter end, but then we kind of want to make sure that throughout the year that we are, kind of keeping it in the back of our minds as well. So along with the normal ongoing payroll activities that you do, you want to consider the year-end tasks, such as issuing the W-2s or reconciling your tax reporting as well as preparing for the upcoming year. Typically, we see customers incorporating these activities throughout the year within their own unique payroll process. So whether it is to review Workday compliance updates, running W-2 audit reports periodically, and fixing any discrepancies or maintaining your W-2 configuration, it's best to have a standardized documented process in play. And it is important because if you do fix those, even if it's just on a quarterly, do a quick checklist, then you'll find that at the end of the year, it's more or less just a normal fourth quarter outside of maybe an adjustment run or looking at the W-2s and balancing to them. So it's it's very minimal than having a whole year worth of, balances to fix or things to look at or anything like that.
Okay, great. So then when we talk about year-end processing, and I do not come from a payroll background, so bear with me for this question, but maybe some of the folks on our presentation are coming from the same perspective. What are we talking about there? What year-end tasks should we actually be completing for payroll?
Well, and there's probably there's multiple tasks. There's this the regular ones that you commonly would think about or know about, and then there's other ones that may be more specific to your company and what your requirements are. But for the most part, the basic ones are you're going to want to balance your quarterly reports to your annual reports. I mean, that's the most important things. You want your W-2s to have the right, you know, right numbers on them. You want them to balance what has been withheld. Reviewing your W-2 box mapping and configuration, year-end adjustments, that can be either adjustments can be done quarterly as well when you're fixing an error, but year-end adjustments are important. Create your fiscal year, your ledger year, and your ledger periods, and open those ledger periods up. Create your payroll calendars for a new year. Even if you have next year on, maybe you want to add another year just so that you don't run the risk. Workday kind of best practice likes for everyone to have a couple years out there, so that also works. Review your holiday calendar, your holiday schedule. And of course, you might want to check your FLSA calendar as well to make sure that has the next year or a couple years on it as well.
That sounds like a lot of tasks. Is there a specific, is
Well,
there
and
a
that's
specific
just a little
order?
bit of them.
Okay. Is there a specific order that those tasks should all be completed in? Because that sounds like a lot.
There's really not a specific required order that these tasks should be completed. It goes back to fitting those into your payroll process, usually the fourth quarter. Um, this will give you the opportunity to make any needed adjustments prior to the processing of the W-2s. Some tasks, such as opening your ledger periods, will need to be completed prior to running your first payroll of the year. So it's basically more of knowing to make certain things happen, even though they're not in order. It's more or less, running payroll, the common sense, make sure your ledger periods are open, make sure you have your schedule worked out for the new year. Those are the most common things, is your schedule and your calendars that you might want to look at doing first.
Okay. And how about issues? Are there some common issues that come up that people really should be on the lookout for?
Yeah, there's common ones. For instance, just as an example, we were talking about ledger periods and having them opened. For example, if they're not created and they haven't been opened, you're going to get an error. That's probably the most common that in the post-production world that we get a call about, that they're getting an error when they're processing their payroll and it's not posting and that kind of thing. It's usually due to that. Operational fixed error task, that's important to be, completed. And if that's a task that you could do quarterly as well to make sure that they're not all piling up. Another common issue might be, your period schedule wasn't updated. So for the new year, or even just when you go to run your W-2 error report, you're getting missing EIN numbers or Social Security numbers for employees. Those are very common.
That's great. I could be wrong, but I feel like I've heard that Collaborative has a checklist that we can provide to customers that helps them get ahead of some of those issues. Is that right?
We do. We do have multiple checklists for a lot of different things. If you don't have your own year-end checklist, then there is one out on Workday Community that is a very good one. And Collaborative can also provide you with some much needed information and checklists and maybe some tips as well.
Okay, great. I know one of the things that we had said we wanted to make sure that we talked to people about was the dashboard and the delivered year-end dashboard that's available. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, Workday has some wonderful dashboards. Some of them are Workday delivered and some of them are more custom. And if you're a CVS Lean On customer with Collaborative, we do have the payroll offering demonstration for the year-end dashboard. And that's been very well received, and it's very informative. And it also goes back to helping you maybe keep things not in order, but an awareness of things needed to be done, the tasks that really need to be completed. By using the year-end dashboard, you'll see a reduction in the amount of time spent processing and reconciling year-end tax forms. You'll have the ability to understand and review the trends in the payroll and the year-end process with respect to the number and types of forms used as well. So it gives you, and it can be custom, based on what you want to see and how you want to see it. So that's always a good thing to look at. And there's multiple dashboards if you're not utilizing them as well that we can also help you with for just your day-to-day processing as well.
Okay, great. How about recommendations in general? Are there some important steps for our customers to be taking to prepare for year end properly?
Um, I would say that ensure that your Workday community access is updated and that you've subscribed to the payroll groups. Workday is awesome, as you well know, that they do provide such good webinars. Utilize those webinars. Utilize the webinars that we put on at Collaborative. They're specific. A lot of them are specific to year end and checklists, and download them for review. See if they work with your specific and unique company. Take the time to review the Workday Standard reports. I mean, there's a ton of information out there, as well as it's a community that you can find answers to and work with each other, and it's just it's an awesome resource, an awesome way to make acquaintances and make, important people that you can use as a resource as well.
So you're saying the written materials are great, but network also. Use community
Yes,
to build a strong support system, huh?
thank you, Mary Ellen. Exactly what I'm trying to say. There is a network out there that those people are awesome.
That's great. That's really good. I think that a lot of times people overlook how important the human community aspect of Workday community is. Great.
Yes.
How about validations? Are there some validations that customers should be doing to ensure that when they get to year end, they've got a really smooth year end process?
There are a couple that come to mind for me that are to me, and everyone has their own importance on what's important to them, what they zero in on based on maybe they had trouble the year before with something or an area. But to me, I can't stress how important it is to do your quarterly tax reports and validate them to your W-2 audit report. The worst thing that you want to do is send out W-2s and then find out something wasn't validated, something didn't balance, and you might have been missing a local that didn't show up, or you just want to, that is your due diligence. And I think that do your adjustments, your adjustment run at the end of the year if you need to correct and do a manual and correct those. validate your calendars and your schedules that they've been updated for the new year. And I know I've mentioned those previously, but those are very important too. They run your payroll. They are your foundation. That's my two main things.
Okay, great. And I know a lot of payroll year-end process is a very back office, to use that term, process. It's not something that the end users, the employees and the managers really see all that much of. But I think when we get into this tips and tricks section, maybe there's going to be some things that Tammy can help join answer in also. Because here's where I think we start maybe seeing some more of the employee engagement. Are there some things that we can do throughout the year, either on the payroll side or on the employee side, to get ahead of that year-end rush? And I don't know a lot about payroll, but even I know every payroll practitioner knows that year-end rush.
As far as, I'll go first, Tammy, sorry, as since I'm already here. As far as on the I've kind of mentioned all of my tips. I would say have a checklist, whether you write it down on things that are important to you, have something that you can fall back on and check off and make sure you covered it. Look at community, the network there, people post their suggestions, their ideas. I suggest a checklist. I don't want to forget something. I suggest looking at community for anything, any changes that Workday has put in. I suggest reaching out to employees and making sure that they have kind of reviewed their addresses, if they've moved, if they've, you know, do they want to opt out of their W-2 and just get it electronically? Are they using, is the company using the mobile and are they using the mobile? There's so, Workday is so robust and there's so much opportunities to include the employee to be active as well, and that will help tremendously on your year end.
Great. Tammy, do you have anything that you can add there, or should we move into what kind of information do employees need to know about year end?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll second exactly what Peggy just said in terms of for year-end payroll, making sure employees know how to check that address in Workday, how to get to it, make sure it's correct, and if they need to make a change, just knowing how to accomplish that. It's also helpful to let them know the date that the W-2 will be visible in Workday. I do want to mention also some other payroll topics in general that you might have to communicate just throughout the year in general. So making sure employees know how to access their payslip, how to view it. If you're newly live to Workday, you might want to point out the differences between how a previous payslip looked versus how it will look in Workday, as well as setting up direct deposit and payment elections. So those are the frequent topics we see for end users in terms of payroll. Something else to consider is delivering that information. So in addition to your regular emails you may be sending out, you can partner with your marketing team and just consider a Workday announcement or a Workday to-do task to really make sure that's at the forefront of people's minds and they know how to accomplish that.
Yeah, and I'm not sure which of you I'm directing this question to, so feel free, either of you, to answer it. But didn't the tax election form change significantly this year?
That one may be more of a Peggy question.
So the tax election form as far as your federal or your state or?
Federal. So again, I'm not a payroll person, but the ability to go in and claim single or married with X number of dependents, the way that worked is very different now than it worked, say, 2 or 3 years ago. And people who have not made any adjustments to their taxes might find that that's new, right?
Yes, you're right. And thank you for bringing that up. And I guess because it happened in the first quarter of the year, and I'm thinking more or less the end of the year, but you're exactly right. If they did not touch it this year and they go in and try to make a change, they're going to find that the form looks a little bit different and it's going to ask a little bit different questions. But overall, it's still going to be the end result. You know, the employee is going to be taxed as they put on there appropriately.
Right. So if that change snuck by any of our customers and you didn't have a good opportunity to communicate that to your employees, maybe there's something that could be worked into that year-end communication also. I know some people have the practice of going in once a year and just checking on
Right.
their tax elections. That might be something that you could communicate and get ahead of also, right, Tammy?
Yeah, I agree. That's a great piece to include with that year-end communication. Another helpful item may be directly within Workday, adding some help text at the top of the screen to explain some of those differences as well. And that can be pretty much any change that takes place with any type of form. So having just help text at the top to just give a short explanation, we've seen that as well.
That's great. Okay, well, we have had not a lot of questions come in yet, so if you have something really specific that you'd like to ask, feel free to go ahead and drop it into the chat now. If it is too tenant specific, we may need to follow up with you offline. We'll take your name and get back to you if it has to do with something specific to configuration in your tenant. But if it's a general payroll or year-end question, please feel free to drop that in there. We have had one question come up asking where you can find this year-end checklist that we're talking about. There's actually a couple sets of information. There is the information that is on Workday Community, which is a really great year-end checklist that Workday provides. Then in addition to that, we like to think that there's a good bit of additional value added through the Workday Payroll year-end checklist. All of our CVS customers that have Lean On or service delivery enablement packages with us are provided that at year end. If you haven't gotten it, feel free to reach out to your engagement manager. And if you're a CVS customer who has a different type of relationship with us, go ahead and reach out to your engagement manager or your client partner, and we would be able to help you with that. This next question, this is going to be a Peggy question for sure. Does Workday have a provision to generate Form 940 FUTA and Form 941 tax deposits?
Let me think how to answer that. So we don't have a provision that I'm aware of to, if you're asking about running the report, filling it in, you can run your reports for your information and to get your numbers, but as far as actually the form and filling the boxes in, not that I'm aware of.
Okay, so it's a little bit different than it is with the tax form situation where you make your tax elections kind of directly into the form, but in Workday.
Right.
Okay, great. And it looks like we've got another question that has come in that says, do you have details about the new boxes added for Canada on the T4?
I do not right now have that information. I can get that information and provide it though.
Okay. So to the person who's asking that question, our lovely moderator from marketing has your contact information. We will get that answer back to you. Any other questions? Oh, it looks like we may have one more coming in. Nope, false alarm. Okay, thank you so much. We'll give it maybe one more minute here in case anybody else has something that they are still in the process of typing. All right. Okay. Well, thank you everybody so much for joining us today. As always, follow-up information from this will be available for all registered participants. And we appreciate your time, and we hope that you found this best practices for year-end payroll Ask the Experts session helpful. Take care and have a wonderful day.